Gore-Tex fabric has approximately 9 billion pores per square inch. Each pore is 20,000 times smaller than a water droplet and 700 times larger than a water vapor molecule. The membrane is 70% air. It weighs almost nothing. It is in the rain jackets of mountaineers on the summit ridge of K2, in the boots of soldiers in the Arctic, in the surgical sutures holding arteries close inside human bodies, in the cable insulation on the Hubble Space Telescope, and in the space suits of every NASA astronaut who has flown since the first space shuttle mission in 1981. Bill Gore and Associates generates $4.8 billion in annual revenue and employs more than 13,000 people across facilities in the United States, Europe, and Asia. None of it was planned. The discovery that made all of it possible happened in October 1969 in a laboratory in Newark, Delaware, when a frustrated engineer yanked a rod of plastic so hard it stretched 800% and turned into something nobody had ever seen before. This is the full story of Gore-Tex, from a research chemist who quit his job at DuPont to make wire and cable in his basement in 1958, to the son who destroyed a laboratory experiment in frustration and accidentally invented the most important fabric in outdoor history, to the jacket that redefined what outdoor gear could be, to the hard patches and vascular grafts and astronaut suits that nobody expected a waterproof jacket material to become, to the PFAS contamination lawsuits that now threaten to define what the company leaves behind, and the $4.8 billion company that is still 67 years after it started, privately held by the people who built it. Wilbert Lee Gore was born in Meridian, Idaho in 1912 and grew up on a ranch. He was not a rancher. He was, from an early age, drawn to chemistry, to the properties of materials, to what things were made of and why they behaved the way they did. He earned a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Utah in 1933 and a master's degree from the same institution, then spent 16 years at DuPont, the Delaware chemical company that was, in the 1940s and the 1950s, one of the most significant material science organizations in the world. DuPont had invented nylon, neoprene, and Teflon. Its research laboratories were among the most productive in the country. Bill Gore spent 16 years inside them, working in technical roles and absorbing the culture of a company that believed deeply in the commercial potential of new materials. The material that captured his imagination was polytetrafluoroethylene. PTFE had been discovered by accident in 1938 by a DuPont chemist named Roy Plunkett, who was researching refrigerants and found that a cylinder of tetrafluoroethylene gas had polymerized overnight into a white, waxy solid that was almost completely chemically inert. It repelled everything: water, oil, acid, alkali. It had an extraordinarily low coefficient of friction, lower than any other known solid material. It could withstand temperatures from minus 200 degrees Celsius to plus 260 degrees Celsius without degrading. It was flexible, stable, and could be formed into sheets, rods, tubes, and fibers. DuPont trademarked it as Teflon, and it went into applications ranging from cookware coatings to industrial gasketing to the Manhattan Project, where its chemical inertness made it useful in handling the corrosive materials involved in uranium enrichment. Bill Gore could see potential in PTFE that his employer was not fully pursuing. The company's business model was oriented toward large-scale commodity applications, coating pans, making gaskets, industrial uses where volume was the point. Gore saw something different. The properties of PTFE made it an ideal insulator for electrical wire. In 1958, he proposed to DuPont management a project to develop PTFE insulated wire and cable. The company was not interested. Gore understood that his idea would not happen inside DuPont. He left his salary, his benefits, and 16 years of professional security and went home. On January 1st, 1958, their 23rd wedding anniversary, Bill Gore and his wife Genevieve, known as Viev, established and Associates in the basement of their home in Newark, Delaware. Both were in their mid-40s. They had 5 children, 2 in college. The basement was the laboratory, the production floor, and the shipping department. Viev managed the finances and administration. Bill developed the product. The problem Bill had identified was specific. He wanted to use PTFE to insulate multiple copper conductors running parallel inside a single flat cable, what the electronics industry called ribbon cable. The burgeoning computer industry needed this product. IBM's mainframes required it. The space program needed it. But coating wire uniformly with PTFE powder was technically difficult, and the available methods produced inconsistent results. The solution came from an unexpected direction. In April 1957, before the company was formally founded, Bill had shown his oldest son, Bob, then a sophomore at the University of Delaware, around his home laboratory and explained the problem. Bob suggested wrapping the wire in PTFE tape rather than coating it in powder. Bill was skeptical. The tape would not adhere to the wire, but he tried it. It worked. The tape was heated through a grooved roller that pressed it uniformly around the conductors, creating a clean, consistent insulating layer. The resulting product, multi-thread ribbon cable, became the company's first patent, filed in Bob Gore's name, and its first commercial product. By 1960, the company had received a large order from the Denver Water Company for 7.5 miles of multi-thread cable, a contract large enough to force the move from the basement to a purpose-built manufacturing plant nearby. Gore cable went into the IBM System 360, the first mass-produced digital computer, and into the Surveyor and Apollo spacecraft. During the Apollo 11 lunar landing in July 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin installed seismographic equipment on the surface of the moon, connected to the lunar lander by a cable manufactured in Newark, Delaware, by a company that had started in a basement 11 years earlier. Then, 3 months after Apollo 11, Bob Gore went back into the laboratory with a new problem. Bob had joined the company in 1963 after completing his PhD in chemical engineering at the University of Minnesota. By 1967, he was the company's technical and research leader. The challenge in the late 1960s was diversification, as integrated circuits became smaller and computers miniaturized. Less cable was needed, and the wire and cable business that had launched the company was facing structural decline. Bob needed to find new applications for PTFE. One evening in October 1969, he was working on a process for stretching extruded PTFE into pipe thread tape, a specific plumbing application, when he encountered a fundamental limitation. Everything in the scientific literature on PTFE agreed that the polymer could be stretched by no more than about 10% before it broke. Bob had been attempting this slow, careful stretching and failing. The material was not cooperating. He grabbed a rod of heated PTFE and yanked it. Not a slow, controlled pull. A sudden, violent, accelerating jerk. The movement of a man who had run out of patience with a material that kept telling him no. The PTFE didn't break. It stretched. It stretched 800%. From a solid, dense rod into an open, airy structure of fibers and nodes and spaces that was approximately 70% air. The solid polymer had been transformed into a microporous membrane. Bob stood in his laboratory looking at something that should not have existed, according to everything the scientific literature said about PTFE. He spent the next 2 years studying what he had made. Expanded polytetrafluoroethylene, EPTFE as Gore would call it, had the chemical properties of PTFE combined with a physical structure that was entirely new. The microporous architecture created billions of tiny passages through the material. Each passage was large enough to allow individual molecules to pass through, but too small for liquid droplets. Water in its liquid form consists of clusters of molecules held together by surface tension into droplets, far too large for the pores. Water vapor consists of individual molecules, small enough to pass through freely. The implications were immediate and obvious to anyone who understood the physics. EPTFE was a membrane that blocked liquid water while allowing water vapor to pass in either direction. Waterproof, breathable, at the same time. By 1971, Bob Gore was experimenting with laminates, bonding the EPTFE membrane to supporting fabric layers for structural reinforcement. The membrane alone was too delicate for practical use. Sandwiched between an outer fabric and an inner liner, it became robust. Gore filed for a patent on expanded PTFE, in 1970. The patent was granted in 1976. That same year, Gore made its first sale of Gore-Tex fabric to a catalog company called Early Winters Limited. The Early Winters catalog advertised the resulting jacket as possibly the most versatile jacket ever made. In 1976, Marmot Mountain Works, then a small mountaineering outfitter, became one of the first outdoor brands to build a product using Gore-Tex fabric, starting with a waterproof sleeping bag. The outdoor industry, which had been selling either breathable non-waterproof fabrics or waterproof non-breathable ones, suddenly had access to a material that did both simultaneously. The implications were immediate and enormous. The mechanism by which Gore-Tex achieved this performance was technically precise and commercially protected. The PTFE membrane contains approximately 9 billion pores per square inch. Each pore is 0.2 microns in diameter, 700 times larger than a water vapor molecule, and 20,000 times smaller than a liquid water droplet. When rain falls on a Gore-Tex outer layer and contacts the membrane, the droplets cannot fit through the pores. Surface tension holds each droplet together. The energy required to deform a droplet small enough to enter a Gore-Tex pore is far greater than any hydrostatic pressure encountered in rain or even immersion. Water vapor from perspiration passes through in the opposite direction freely because individual vapor molecules are far smaller than the pore openings. The result is a fabric that is simultaneously impermeable to liquid water entering and permeable to vapor exiting. This was not what PVC rainwear did. PVC blocked everything, rain out, perspiration in. The inside of a PVC rain jacket after 2 hours of hiking was a warm, wet environment that soaked the wearer from the inside as thoroughly as rain would from the outside. Nor was Gore-Tex what conventional waterproof treated cotton or nylon did. Durable water-repellent coatings applied to conventional fabrics caused water to bead and run off the surface, but failed under sustained rain pressure and offered no breathability under exertion. Gore-Tex was categorically different from both. It represented a genuine technological discontinuity in the history of protective clothing. The outdoor industry recognized this within a few years of the first jacket. By the early 1980s, virtually every serious outdoor apparel company in the world was licensing Gore-Tex fabric and producing jackets, pants, guitars, gloves, and footwear from it. The North Face, Marmot, Mountain Hardwear, Patagonia, REI, Arteries, Columbia. The licensing model that Bill and Bob Gore developed was as important as the fabric itself. Gore would not sell Gore-Tex to just anyone. A brand that wanted to use Gore-Tex in its products had to submit those products to Gore's testing program and meet Gore's performance standards before being permitted to use the Gore-Tex label, the guaranteed to keep you dry promise printed on every garment carrying the Gore-Tex hang tag was backed by Gore's quality control, not simply the manufacturer's claim. If a Gore-Tex product failed to keep the wearer dry under warranted conditions, Gore required the manufacturer to repair or replace it. This quality guarantee became a central element of the Gore-Tex brand's commercial power. By the mid-1980s, Gore-Tex had become more than a fabric designation. It had become a standard of performance, a certification that a garment would do what its label claimed. The brand operated at a level above the apparel brands that used it. Consumers knew Gore-Tex. They trusted Gore-Tex. They would buy a jacket they had never heard of from a brand they barely knew if the Gore-Tex hang tag was on it. That certification effect, a material brand more powerful than most product brands, was worth more than any advertising campaign and more durable than any single product relationship. The military recognized it too. Through the 1980s and 1990s, Gore received major orders for Gore-Tex fabric for military personnel, combat uniforms, cold weather gear, special operations clothing designed for environments where equipment failure was not inconvenient but fatal. The U.S. Army, the Marine Corps, and NATO forces in cold weather theaters used Gore-Tex gear. The same membrane that kept a weekend hiker dry in a Pacific Northwest rainstorm kept the soldier's core temperature stable in Norwegian winter conditions. The military application reinforced the brand's association with mission-critical performance, an association that echoed through its outdoor apparel marketing for decades. The firefighter market added another layer. Gore-Tex barriers for firefighting turnout gear, the heavy protective clothing worn by structural firefighters, were introduced to protect first responders from excessive heat stress. The Gore-Tex barrier layer in a firefighting suit reduced the amount of heat that passed through the garment during a structure fire, providing a margin of protection against steam burns and radiant heat exposure that conventional materials could not match. The fabric that had started in a catalog jacket for weekend hikers was now inside the gear of the people who ran toward the burning buildings. By the mid-1980s, Gore Associates was generating annual revenues estimated between $200 million and $300 million. The company operated 29 plants worldwide and employed 4,200 people. The outdoor apparel division, Gore-Tex Fabrics, was the most publicly visible part of the business, but it was not the only part. The medical division had launched in 1975 with the first Gore-Tex vascular graft, a synthetic arterial replacement made from expanded PTFE that could substitute for damaged blood vessels in cardiovascular surgery. The same microporous structure that made Gore-Tex fabric breathable made expanded PTFE vascular grafts. Biocompatible, the pores in the material allowed the body's own tissue to grow through and integrate with the graft, reducing rejection and thrombosis in a way that solid synthetic materials could not. Gore-Tex patches for heart surgery followed. The Gore-Tex cardiovascular patch, used in repair of congenital heart defects and other cardiac anomalies, became a standard tool in pediatric cardiac surgery. Gore-Tex sutures combined the material's strength, flexibility, and chemical inertness into a surgical thread that outperformed existing options in vascular repair, where conventional suture materials could damage the delicate endothelial lining of blood vessels. By the late 1980s, the Gore-Tex vascular graft was the most widely used synthetic vascular implant in the world, present in operating rooms on every continent, and instrumental in saving thousands of lives annually that would have been lost to vascular disease in an earlier era. The material that Bob Gore had discovered by yanking a plastic rod in frustration in 1969 was, within 15 years of that discovery, repairing human hearts. The electronics division continued producing cable for aerospace and defense applications. Gore fiber appeared in the spacesuits designed for the Columbia Space Shuttle mission in 1981, the first NASA mission to use the reusable orbiter. In 1993, Gore developed the optics apparatus used to correct the Hubble Space Telescope's flawed mirror, working within the COSTAR instrument with polyester insulated ribbon cable that met the exacting demands of spaceborne optics. An international expedition that traversed the continent of Antarctica in Gore-Tex outerwear carried a tent and clothing system designed for temperatures that would be lethal within minutes without adequate protection. One explorer, in published accounts of the expedition, credited the Gore-Tex outer shell worn during a storm encounter on the polar plateau with saving his life. The difference between surviving the wind and cold and not surviving it was, in his account, a material question. In 1997, Gore launched Elixir guitar strings, polymer-coated strings that extended the playing life of acoustic guitar strings by preventing the oil, sweat, and oxidation that degrades tone and playability. The coating was PTFE based, the same polymer that was keeping rain off mountaineers and keeping artificial arteries inside cardiovascular patients was keeping Derek Trucks' guitar in tune longer. The Elixir string became the best-selling coated guitar string in the world within a few years of its introduction and remains so today. W.L. Gore Associates is the company that makes the best waterproof jacket fabric, the best synthetic vascular grafts, and the best guitar strings simultaneously. The logic of material science does not map neatly onto the categories of consumer experience. Gore remained privately held through all of it. Bill Gore died in 1986, having built a company that he had always insisted on keeping free from external shareholders, public market pressures, and hierarchical management structures. The Gore management philosophy, lattice organization, no traditional titles, no command and control hierarchy, decisions made through peer relationships and project commitments, was as unconventional as the material the company was built on. Associates, not employees, leaders, not managers. The approach was studied by business schools and profiled in management literature as an example of what organizational innovation could achieve. Bob Gore succeeded his father as president and chief executive officer in 1976 and held the role until 2000, when he became chairman. He held that position until 2016. Bob Gore died on September 17, 2020, at the age of 83 at his home in Earlville, Maryland. He was survived by 3 sons, a daughter, 6 stepchildren, 28 grandchildren, and 11 great-grandchildren. The obituaries mentioned the Gore-Tex jacket, and the surgical graft, and the guitar string, and the spacesuit cable. They mentioned the accidental yank on the PTFE rod in 1969 that made all of it possible. Today, W.L. Gore Associates is headquartered in Newark, Delaware, where it has been since 1958. It employs more than 13,000 people and generates $4.8 billion in annual revenues across 4 divisions: fabrics, medical, industrial, and electronics. It is among the 200 largest privately held companies in the United States. The Boyle family still holds more than 40%. That is Columbia Sportswear. The Gore family's stake in W.L. Gore Associates has never been disclosed because the company has never had to disclose it. It has never needed outside shareholders. The company is also facing lawsuits. In 2023, residents of Elkton, Maryland, filed a class action against W.L. Gore Associates, alleging that the company's manufacturing facilities in Cecil County had contaminated local groundwater with PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, the family of fluorinated compounds that includes PTFE and its precursors. PFAS do not break down in the environment or in the human body, which is why they are called forever chemicals. In December 2024, the state of Maryland filed its own lawsuit, alleging that Gore's 13 Cecil County manufacturing facilities had released perfluorooctanoic acid, PFOA, a regulated forever chemical, into the air, groundwater, surface water, and soil of the surrounding community at levels the state alleged reached 700 times the federal limit. The company, the lawsuit alleged, had known about the dangers for decades and had not disclosed them. Gore denied the allegations. The lawsuits are pending. In 2021, Gore announced the development of a new Gore-Tex membrane made from expanded polyethylene, EPE, rather than expanded PTFE. The EP membrane is PFAS-free. It performs comparably to the PTFE membrane in waterproofing and breathability tests. It costs more to produce and requires more frequent washing to maintain performance. The transition from ePTFE to APE in consumer fabrics has been underway since 2024, with the goal of removing PTFE from all Gore-Tex consumer products. The patent that Bob Gore filed in May 1970, after his frustrated yank on a PTFE rod the previous October, launched a material that eventually required its own replacement. The basement in Newark, Delaware, where Bill and Viv Gore started a company on their wedding anniversary in 1958, is still there. The company they built is still privately held. The fabric their son invented in a moment of frustration has been on the summit of every major mountain range on Earth, in the operating rooms of every major hospital in the world, in the cable that connected seismographic equipment to the Eagle lunar lander on the surface of the moon. Bob Gore yanked a piece of plastic in a laboratory in 1969 and made something that should not have been possible. It still is not fully understood. It still works.